Hey guys, James here with Waterford Business Solutions, and today we wanted to kind of work a little bit more in ServiceTitan. We released a video about a month and a half, 2 months ago, kind of doing a quick introduction to ServiceTitan and what ServiceTitan, how the integration worked, things to look out for, things like that. And there was a lot of reception there, a lot of questions that we've received there. And we knew we were going to have to go further in depth, which we do plan to do as we keep going forward. We're going to scatter in some different ServiceTitan videos here and there throughout our videos as we kind of go through everything. But we wanted to slowly do that and slowly kind of add on and get a little more detailed in the integration and how things work. So that's kind of what we are getting into today. We're going to specifically be kind of talking about auto batching and auto exporting. Both of these being overall some great features, some things that can be useful in the integration, but may also not be things that we recommend or that work for your business. So we're going to go into detail explaining what each of these two features are, what they involve, the pros, cons, and any issues that kind of occur from working with them there. So go ahead and join us today to do just that. Let's start with auto batching. Auto batching is something that ServiceTitan has had for a while. It's overall a feature that generally is not a big issue. It's something that we do have a good bit of clients on our end use so that it helps them to go ahead and batch all of their invoices, payments, bills, returns or refunds, and inventory adjustments. It just kind of does all of that, or some of it, because you can select what gets auto batched and what doesn't, in order to make the integration and exporting of everything more streamlined. Remember, in ServiceTitan, to export from ServiceTitan to QuickBooks, you first must batch everything together. So you either manually have to do that, going through and selecting all of the invoices, all of the payments, all of the bills, everything like that that you want to send over to QuickBooks and create a batch with that, and then you would have to export it, or you can set up these auto batches. Now, typically speaking, if you are using ServiceTitan's payment processor, that's going to be pretty much an automatic auto batch that is set up. When you're working with TSYS, which is ServiceTitan's payment processor, and using the native payment processor, anytime you have a credit card payment, it's going to go ahead and auto batch all of those payments that are deposited on a specific date. That way, when it goes into QuickBooks, when it shows up in your bank account, that batches all together and you've got all the transactions over there. This is kind of a standard that is always going to exist in ServiceTitan. However, you can also set this up to do it with invoices or non-credit card payments or bills, refunds and returns, everything like that. This really helps to streamline transaction processing and reduce that manual intervention, because you set up everything kind of going on. You're going to go ahead and it'll just automatically do it based on one of 3 different options here, and it will auto batch it instead of you having to go through and select all of the transactions that need to go in here. The real purpose of it is it's going to really help 4 ways in helping with time savings. It's going to really eliminate the need to manually go over, batch each invoice or payment together. And that can be very time consuming. I mean, quite frankly, even for our clients, we're going to require them to set up the batches themselves, because once you batch something and export it over, you can't modify that invoice anymore. It locks out that invoice and you've got to make adjustments from then on out. Whereas with letting the client do it, it makes sure that they're done with that job. Everything is closed out. They're not going to make any more changes to the invoice or anything like that. And so it's going to be something that the client has to do, even with us managing the integration for them. So this auto batching removes that transaction or that time period out by you setting up a specific trigger to create the batch. It also helps you with organizing transactions. It makes it kind of easier to track and manage some group transactions because you can go ahead and say, hey, I want to go ahead and batch over invoices like this, so on and so forth, just to make, again, a little bit easier in organization, and honestly, even more so with your efficiency. It's going to automate a lot of your workflow on the accounting side because once it's batched, it's a lot easier to go ahead and export, because exporting is just one quick click where you go in, you go to that export center, you select the batch, you hit export, bada bing, bada boom. Whereas with batching, you've got to go in and select all of these transactions. So batching is honestly the much more time consuming situation here, and it does take a good bit more of your manual input there. So by doing the auto batching, it does reduce a good bit of the workflow. It can also help reduce errors. It decreases kind of the likelihood of manual entry mistakes or accidentally missing an invoice or a payment or something like that. We end up reducing that because we know everything's going to go over. So it's really good in a lot of those ways. And like I said earlier, there's kind of 3 different ways to do this. You can either do kind of a cadence-based grouping. That's going to allow transactions to be grouped based on a specific schedule. So every single day at the end of the day, invoices are going to go ahead and get grouped and batched every single day at the end of the day. Payments will go ahead and get batched, so on and so forth. You can do that daily, you can do that weekly, you can do it monthly. I would overall recommend at least doing it weekly. That way we're constantly being able to update your accounting platform. Daily would obviously be better. Having a single batch for each day allows us to make sure that we're updating QuickBooks or your accounting platform on a daily basis, and that's going to give you more accuracy in everything in the long run. You can also go ahead and do a multiple transaction type. Multiple different transaction types can be grouped into a batch. So a single batch can include invoices, payments, and many other transaction types. So it does work pretty well there, where you're not limited in just a invoice or just a payment. You can set it up so it only does that, but generally speaking, it's only going to be a situation of what is the limitation you set up in the auto batch. You do have to keep in mind, though, that while auto batching is going to group all of your transactions together, you're still going to have to post and manually export them. So you're still going to have to go into the export screen, to the integration screen, and export those batches to your accounting platform, even after everything's done. That's still going to have to happen. But at least you're not having to take the time-consuming task of sorting through all your invoices, sorting through all of your payments, and handling everything there. Now, with everything, there's always going to be pros and cons, and there are some cons to auto batching. One of those cons is going to be the fact, like I said, once you batch something over and once you export that batch over, it's going to be locked. So if you're setting up a daily batch situation for your invoices, and you might have a job that's going to take 5, 6, 7 days, it could end up getting pushed over, batched together, exported over before you're done with the job, and then you have to go through and you have to do adjustments to that invoice, and that's a much more painful and time-consuming task just because of how the integration works there. Some transactions may still require manual batching in cases of customizations or exceptions that you create. So it's not going to be an automatic thing all the time. So you're going to need to remember that you're going to have to take a look at this. You're going to have to double check it. It's not just set it up and let it run. Just like everything else, while automation and while computer systems are great, they aren't going to take over and manage everything for you. You're going to have to go ahead and periodically review your batches, make sure that all of them are accurate, everything's ready to go over before you go ahead and post and export it. Because once again, once we export it, that's going to go ahead and lock down that transaction so that we can't touch it or edit it anymore in ServiceTitan. So while auto batching can be really great, you need to understand what is going to work for your business. And make sure that you are, when you're working with auto batching, you're working with the entire team that's going to be involved in this, whether it be the office manager and the accounts receivable in-house clerk, whether you've got an outside accounting department or outside accounting firm working with you. We a lot of times have to sit down with clients that we're managing that integration and walk them through and discuss the auto batch and what is going to work for them specifically as a client. Unfortunately, our rule of thumb here, and it really is true, there is no two businesses that are the same. The workflows, the way that you run your business, the type of customers you have, it's not going to be the same workflow. So we can't say this is exactly what you need to do, especially with the ServiceTitan integration, because it is so complicated there. Now, outside of auto batching, we go to auto exporting. Now, auto exporting is overall fairly new. It's something that ServiceTitan came out with, I believe, June, July of 2024, last year. And in theory, it is a very great sounding product. It's a very great sounding thing because, hey, now I don't have to think about this at all. I can turn on auto batching. I can turn on auto exporting. I don't have to worry about anything at all. And overall, it does exactly that. It's going to automatically export all transactions, your invoices, your payments, your bills from ServiceTitan to your accounting software. And with the auto exporting, it's aiming to batch, post, and export without manual intervention. So once you go ahead and you finish a job and it's ready to go ahead and be batched, all of that is all automatically done, and it automates that entire workflow there, taking, in theory, a ton of time, a ton of work off the back end there. But again, like I said, that's in theory. In reality, it is a very, very limited situation, and it's not something that we would recommend for any client to use, unfortunately. We've tried to work with this for multiple clients because we love the theoretical sound of it, because it really brings ServiceTitan's integration more so in line to other systems like House Call Pro, Jobber, etc., where it's automatically going into QuickBooks or your accounting program. And so it streamlines a lot of things and honestly, theoretically, will take out a lot of headaches. But due to how ServiceTitan's integration is set up, it honestly creates way, way, way more headaches than it's worth. Overall, the point of having your CRM, ServiceTitan, whatever it may be, integrated with your accounting platform is to get detail out of it. We want to see exactly what's going on. We want to see exactly who you're invoicing, when you're invoicing. That way we can run reports and see financial reports on how much it costs you, being able to do more detailed job costing that ServiceTitan's not going to let you do, be able to run reports on products and services, amount of sales, average sale price, things like that, that again, ServiceTitan's not going to allow you to do. By integrating with an accounting platform, it really opens up and gives you a lot more data to see. It also allows us to go ahead and break down your income better. Whenever we're looking at a P&L or an income statement, for larger companies, even smaller companies, we want to be able to see some type of income breakdown, whether that be residential versus commercial, whether that be HVAC versus plumbing, whether that be install versus service. It depends on the company as to what we see there, but we want to see that. And all of these things get highly, highly, highly limited when we are working with auto batching, or excuse me, more specifically, auto exporting. When we are dealing with the auto exporting feature, it's going to give us a generic customer name. In QuickBooks, the transactions are going to be grouped under ServiceTitan customer. Instead of us being able to see exactly what you did for John Doe or Jane Doe or James Smith or whoever it may be, we're not going to be able to see that specific information. we're only going to see ServiceTitan customer. Now, this is a multifold issue. The biggest issue behind it is, let's say you choose to leave ServiceTitan and go to another platform that has different ways or can integrate with QuickBooks to pull over this history. Now you're not going to have that customer history in moving over to that other platform. Again, not that we're looking to move away from ServiceTitan, but having that backup and having the ease to change platforms is always a nice thing to have happen. The other thing is we can't assign payroll time. We can't assign expenses specifically to that customer. We can't do job costing specifically to that customer and see that in there. We can't do profit and losses by customer. We can't see a average price ticket by customer. And again, some of those things are things you can do in ServiceTitan, but there's going to be more detail and different detail that you can pull out of QuickBooks. The bigger one that I'm going to really say is going to be lack of income breakdown. Instead of having a detailed invoice where we can go ahead and see, hey, this much is what we made in our install department and this much is what we made in our service department, the auto export feature is just going to push over income, sales. It's not going to give us that income breakdown, which we would have with other things. And quite frankly, that's my bigger issue with this. It's going to lose so much information that you need from a KPI and financial standpoint to know what are your material metrics on each of your departments, what are your labor metrics on everything there. And while you can do class tracking, you get a little bit of this, it's still not going to work nearly as well as making sure that we have a solid income breakdown in the first place. So by not having that income broken down, you're going to really have very rough, very incomplete financial reporting, and that's really not good for you. The other thing, and honestly the biggest thing that we run into, is this is all happening with journal entries. And these journal entries generally don't occur correctly and create a disaster in the books. A journal entry is the basis of accounting. But if a journal entry is not set up correctly, and a lot of times we've seen with these auto exports that it does not work correctly, it's going to go ahead and debit the checking and credit the default income instead of the categories, categorizing the revenue, categorizing everything correctly. And the issue is, if we're auto exporting and we're auto exporting 50K of sales for the day, but you didn't take and deposit 50K to the bank and it's debiting that checking account because a debit increases that checking account, what's going to happen is it's going to increase your bank account balance by 50K even though you didn't take 50K to the bank. You might have only taken 25K to the bank, you might have put 10K into your cash savings or 10K into a different bank account, and now we've got inaccurate bank registers and thus woefully inaccurate financials. Ideally, what should happen is invoices should be created. That's going to create our income. That's going to create our accounts receivable. Payments should then be applied against them, reducing our accounts receivable and increasing our undeposited funds. And then once everything is deposited based off of where it's deposited to, we reduce undeposited funds and increase the bank account or the account where the funds were deposited to. That gives us a transaction flow that we can follow, which is very, very important. And more importantly, beyond just that transaction flow, it makes sure that we're keeping our bank registers accurate. Anytime that we are looking at, or anytime we're working in financials, we want to make sure that the bank register in your accounting platform matches exactly to the bank register at your bank. So transaction for transaction, amount for amount, date by date, all of that matches. We want to make sure that that's occurring. And with this auto exporting, it really isn't happening. Now, in saying all of that, I'm sure you can tell I'm not a huge fan of it. I really would not recommend that you use this because it is going to cause some issues here. However, I know some people, one way or the other, are going to want to use this. So we do have a little bit of solutions and workarounds that we've kind of figured out here. And it's more so not to work with the platform, because the platform isn't able to be worked with, quite frankly. But if you have already had auto exporting set up, and if you've already had auto exporting going into your QuickBooks or into your accounting platform, you can do one of the following things to go ahead and clean it up and fix the disaster it creates. You can go ahead and delete all of the journal entries and all of the manually exported invoices and payments for the time period that it was going on. If the books have not been closed out for the month, or the taxes have not been filed, that's going to be very specific, or the requirement is if you're reconciled or you've done anything to close out, pay taxes, reconcile bank accounts, you won't be able to do this. But if you haven't done that, the best thing you can do and the easiest thing you can do is you can go ahead and delete all of the journal entries and manually export every single invoice and payment for that time period. That's going to bring over the invoices separately, and it's going to bring over the payments separately, so that you can then create the bank deposits correctly. It'll give us the correct income, it will give us the correct undeposited funds, allow us to create the bank deposits. Everything will work the way it's supposed to work in an accounting world. It's very time consuming, I'm not going to deny that, but this is how you correct it the right way and make sure it's accurate. However, if your journal entries are in a time period that either are closed out or tax-wise, or you've reconciled the transactions and everything for the month, the journal entries will need to remain, because if you remove them, you're going to screw things up more so. Go ahead and, as soon as you can, turn off auto exporting. If it is turned on, turn it off and change it to manual in the auto exporting section of the journal entry and auto batching tab under the accounts and settings. From there, it's really going to depend on how messed up everything is in your QuickBooks or in your accounting platform. We might have to do some journal entries to correct this. That's probably going to be what we need to do. But it's really on a case-by-case basis. We've had to completely redo people's books. We've been able to get away with doing some minor journal entries to correct it, but it's really a case-by-case basis. Overall, though, there are going to be a few best practices to work with this. When working with auto batching, make sure that you optimize the auto batch settings. Ensure the cadence and transaction types align with your business needs. Like I said, no two businesses are the same. So no two businesses are going to need the same settings for transaction types and cadence. So figure out what aligns with your needs and take a look at it from there. Also, go ahead and verify your exported data. Regularly check the transactions in QuickBooks to make sure that everything is accurate. You should be doing this at minimum on a monthly basis to make sure when you're reconciling and closing out the books that everything looks good and correct there. So make sure that we're verifying that. Conduct periodic reconciliations. Again, I recommend at minimum on a monthly basis, you go through and you compare your QuickBooks records with your ServiceTitan reports so that you know that your QuickBooks is matching your ServiceTitan. Reconciliation is not just reconciling a bank account. Reconciliation is making sure that all of the source data is matching from the source versus what is in your accounting platform. So reconciling your QuickBooks, reconciling your income, your sales, your AR, your undeposited funds, reconciling all of that to your CRM and your invoicing platform, or ServiceTitan in this case, is going to be required. And the best thing you can do is consult support resources. ServiceTitan has a lot of them, but quite frankly, they don't give you the best idea of everything. So don't be afraid to reach out to experts in the ServiceTitan QuickBooks integration there. Overall, guys, as you can see, the integration between ServiceTitan and any accounting platform, we predominantly work in QuickBooks, is complicated. And while there are some ways to streamline it and make it simpler, you do need to make sure that you're double checking, cross checking, and ensuring accuracy for everything. I hope you found this video useful, and if you did, I please encourage you to like, comment, subscribe to our channel, share this video with anyone else that you think can utilize it, and that way more people can get information and get help with their business there. I also encourage you, if you feel like you've got an issue, whether it be with ServiceTitan, whether it be with accounting, whether it be with just understanding your finances as a whole, don't hesitate to reach out to us here at Waterford Business Solutions. Give us a call at 864-351-0852 or send us an email at info@waterfordbusiness.com. We'd be happy to talk with you, give you kind of a free consultation, see where you're at right now, what we can do to help you, and how you can best optimize your business and really start understanding everything. As always, guys, thanks for joining me. I know this was a longer one, but there was a lot of information to get out to you, and I look forward to seeing you next week.